Hey, hello everybody. Hello Eindhoven.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, good morning.
So we have, it's the final day of Virtual Design Festival, and we've teamed up with Dutch Design Week to explore what's happening at Dutch Design Week this year. It's usually the biggest design festival in Northern Europe, but as we all know, coronavirus has kind of thrown a bit of a spanner in the works. But the week has a plan, and here to discuss that with us is Martijn Paulen, who's part of the Dutch Design Foundation, which runs Dutch Design Week, Joseph Grima from Dutch Design Academy Eindhoven, and Kiki van Eijk, who's a designer who lives in Eindhoven. So first of all, Martijn, hi there.
Hi Marcus, good to see you.
Going to give us a little bit more of an introduction as to who you are and what you do and where you are.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with my presentation. I have...
Now, hang on a minute, Martijn, don't jump into that yet. Just explain who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am Martijn Paulen. I'm running the Dutch Design Foundation. So what we do is really try, in all sorts of measures, try to give designers a platform, give them good connections, make sure that people understand what design is about, because we thoroughly believe that we need creative thinking, that we need designers on our path forward. So that's our mission, to give designers a platform. Yeah.
And the foundation runs Dutch Design Week. What else does it do apart from that?
Well, we run Dutch Design Awards as well, but those are events. We're also more around the year trying to build connections for designers. So, for example, we run design embassies where we see transition themes like how we're going to cope with cities of the future, and try to link design thinking to those sorts of topics. We run what we call what if labs. So if companies say, look, we want to meet designers because we need this out of the box thinking or these new processes, and then we link designers to companies or governments. So actually year round, we're trying to push design thinking into and design doing into our society, because we really believe that there's still a gap, and designers need this platform. Yeah.
And where are you right now? It looks like you're at home. Do you live in Eindhoven? Where do you live?
I live in the center of Eindhoven, actually. So normally it's a 5-minute ride to office. And I've been in office all through the Corona times as well, but I was only me, myself, and I. But that was a nice space to work. But actually today is a day off for me, and those are very rare. So I decided to stay at home and talk to you from my home environment.
Great. Joseph, hi there.
Hey, good morning.
How are you and where are you?
I'm good. I'm spiritually in Eindhoven, but actually physically in Milan today. So yeah, speaking to you from my Milan apartment.
And Joseph, you wear lots and lots of hats, but tell us about your Design Academy Eindhoven hat. What's your role there, and what are you doing, and how are things going? Because it's tough for schools, right?
Yeah, so I think it's tough for schools all over the world, and for us as well. And Design Academy Eindhoven is a small but very motivated school, I should say, with a very international studentship. We have students from over 40 countries, and so obviously a lot of them have, by force of circumstance or by choice, returned home. So at the moment, we're kind of thin on the ground in the school. The school is actually closed to save for the students who are preparing their graduation project. And we're trying to keep things running as best we can, like as everybody is. We've had huge support and understanding from the students themselves, who have really kind of taken this as an opportunity, and have also, I must say, really followed our invitation to see this as a crucial moment for designers to understand how the mechanics of everyday life works. Like, you really see how things work when they're actually put on hold. So I think this whole episode has actually been incredibly influential and hopefully fertile for them as well. So my role at Design Academy Eindhoven is creative director. Together with Raf de Koenig and Mechtel van Homburg, we kind of administer and run the school in different capacities. But my role is very much attached to collaborating with Martijn and the rest of the design community in Eindhoven.
And of course, the Design Academy show each October is one of the kind of anchors of Dutch Design Week. We'll talk about that a bit later to hear your views on how you will show the student work. But Will the students be coming back in September? Is that the plan?
That is the plan, and we're very excited that as of a couple of weeks, together with Martijn and all of his team, we've been able to confirm that there will be a graduation show, there will be a Dutch Design Week in a modified format. It won't be run the same way as it always is. We have a special focus on a professional audience, but the most important thing for us, obviously, is to give the platform that we take pride in giving every year, this fantastic platform that I dare say the largest graduation show in the calendar of any school anywhere around the world, with over 50,000 visitors in a normal year. Obviously that's a big deal for the students, and to take that away from them would have been a huge loss. So we're very happy that we are going to be able to do it, and we hope that in many ways it can be even better with a more focused audience and a real emphasis on the quality of the connections rather than the volume.
Great, thanks, Joseph. Kiki, hi there.
Hi, good to see you.
Well, I know where you are because we were speaking to your partner, Joost, just a couple of days ago from the same building. But anyway, explain who you are.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. This is my home.
Okay, so tell us who you are and where you are and what you do.
I'm Kiki van Eijk. I'm an independent, working as an independent designer. Let's say in between art and design and everything that is in between. Sometimes my work can be very functional. Sometimes it's more on the social base, and sometimes it's very autonomous. But the core is always making things locally in our own workshop or with local producers around us. I grew up as a student in Eindhoven. I'm not born here, but I graduated 20 years ago at Design Academy Eindhoven. So this will be my 20th year for Design Week, actually. It's true what Joseph says. Already when I graduated, the Design Academy community is a very strong community, and you feel that all around Eindhoven. And I think there's a logic that the Academy is here based in Eindhoven because it was set up in the past when the industries around needed designers to think and to solve problems. And you can still feel that because it causes a really creative vibe. And I also agree with Joseph said that, of course, this time has been a struggle for everybody. But I see it a bit the same as in the design process. There are always struggles. And the interesting thing is to find solutions for that. I think that's in the kind of designer's DNA. So it's also a very interesting time, reflecting on things and see how we can change things.
And of course, the success of Dutch Design Week has been built on several pillars. One is the importance of the Academy and its graduation show. But another one is the fact that there are loads and loads of amazing designers in Eindhoven, often in Eindhoven because they studied at the Academy. Yeah. And you all open up your studios to visitors during the week. So how important is Dutch Design Week for you usually, and how are you approaching this very different circumstance of the coming Dutch Design Week?
Yeah, well, Dutch Design Week has become more and more important since it has been growing so much. I was one of the first designers that did an exhibition next to the graduation show, because at first the graduation show was the only thing there was to see in the Dutch Design Day first and then week. But with a few designers, we set up an exhibition next to that, and then every year the week has been growing. It is important because it's all about connections and about, reflecting together on things, meeting new people. And it has really, started from the designers' studios opening up, as you say, making it also a bit different than hundreds of other design weeks in the world, because it's a little bit less glamorous, I would say, and more hands-on. And I think that's the special thing about Design Week, that you go into these kind of bold spaces of the designers themselves, or the milk factory where a graduation show takes place. So it has a very intimate feeling from itself already from the origin. And I think that's good because, of course, it will change a lot, but in a way there's also not such a big change, because that will stay the same, that you will have this intimate feeling, even more maybe because there will be less people and there's more attention and more focus on everything. So that's also how we are going to do, to set up what we are going to do in Design Week, to focus on that, on intimate relationship, enhance them, and invite people to come and to have a bit more time for everyone.
Okay, great. So each of you has prepared a little presentation. Martijn, do you want to fire yours up now? Or I think actually we're running your presentation from...
Yeah, please.
Whoever's running Martijn's presentation, they can fire it up now.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, what I would like to do is tell a little bit about I would say, the DNA of Dutch Design Week. And but first I want to have a disclaimer there. I sound very enthusiastic when I talk about Dutch Design Week, but please don't confuse this with arrogance, because it's not something I organize or we as an organization organize top down. It really is about so many people putting their shoulders underneath it, being built with and for, but mainly also with partners and the community. So it's more pride that you hear than arrogance or anything, because I know we're doing it together. But it is kind of a, yeah, I would say beautiful accident. It's not something you could have planned or yeah, devised up front. We're going to do this event. And Sebastian next. But it has been growing. These are some of the stats, not really interesting. The only funny thing about it is we have normally about 350,000 visitors in 110 locations. Next, Sebastian. And that would mean we're really taking over the city because we have more visitors than we have inhabitants in Eindhoven. I know coming from a London perspective, this is really ridiculous, but we're a really small town. And that really makes the designers take over the town. So that also is a good example of how much creativity is pouring out of every room, every hall, every, I would say, workplace in the city. We're really taking it over. And next. And that means we're taking over a lot of the public spaces. Next, we're taking over the night. So it's during the day, we have the exhibitions, at night we have program, we have music. Next, and just like I said, there isn't a hall or an old factory building. We're an old factory town, of course, company town, an old factory building within the center where there is a vibrance of Design Week. So many people who come from abroad really experience this whole city is being taken over. This year it will be a little bit different, but we'll go into that later. And then when you take over the city, sometimes you get very famous journalists from abroad, very wise people who say interesting things about you. Next. So we see this as a compliment. It's Mr. Marcus Fair saying, I've seen the future. It comes from an ugly little town in the south of the Netherlands. And but this is really nice because we are a small town, but the size of the Design Week is way too large for the small town that we are. And it really has to do with this unique DNA, which is about the future. And we kind of divide it up in 3 core elements. So next, and next, it's processes, crossovers, and talents. And next one. And the first one, and you can go through 3 slides, Sebastian. And the first one is what Kiki already said. You're going to visit really in the workplaces of the designers. So you get to see the work they are working at the moment. So you see the concepts, the material studies, the experiments, the prototypes. It's not finished products. And by that, you get a glimpse into their future. It's not ready to sell yet, but it's, you know, maybe it will hit the market in 2 to 3 years. So next one, Sebastian, and the next one. So this whole idea of going into the workplace, just as Kiki said, and seeing a little bit of their future really gives you this idea of much more a conceptualized, conceptual Dutch Design Week instead of, I would say, a fair. So the next one, the next pillar is about crossovers. Next. And like I said, we and Kiki already said, we were a company town. We are a high-tech region. So from the start, it was really in the core DNA of the designers here as well to really cross over to technology. But we like to stretch design in all matters. So also towards social design, to societal issues, or towards art, or towards, well, for example, technology. So if we go to the next one, to give you an example, this one is from a student at the design department from the Technological University. It's industrial design. We like to show that crossover as well towards technology and products. And I really like this one because it's a phone with a phone casing, and it's for blind people. And blind people use phones to communicate, but it's always with speech. And then it's not really private. And if you're in a public place and you want to communicate and you always have to do this with audio, it feels uncomfortable if everyone can listen in. So what this group of students have devised is a phone casing. As soon as you click it on, it's Bluetooth connected. And at that moment you have a keypad with braille on the back of your phone. And that's what I really like about those sorts of crossovers. And within the domain of industrial design, to me, I don't know if you agree, Marcus, but very often it's about products you think, oh, why wasn't this there already? Or it should have been there for years. Or once it's there, it's easily adopted because it's so logical. This is what's possible on technology side. Good designers making it applicable to people, actually. So we like these crossovers, and we really think that the future needs crossovers with designers. That's why we're so much preaching about design sometimes. If we go to the third pillar, so next, we really lean on talents. So we have been building alongside with Design Academy, but also with the 4 technological universities of the Netherlands, and more international design schools come to Dutch Design Week as well. So like Central St. Martin's, Eijk, RCA, international design universities. And what we really like to be the place where you can see these great thinkers of the future as well. And we really like to give you a window of opportunity to look into what is the next generation thinking of? How are they using their creative skills to make a difference? And of course, a big partner pillar that we build on is the graduation show of Design Academy, but more and more it becomes a platform for future talent. So for example, together next together with Design and Daba, we also build a platform where we put the best graduates from around the world on stage, just again to show the world what are these people from around the world thinking of? How are they using the creativity to make that difference? And also to see the cultural differences from around the world, designing from different contexts, designing from different cultural influences. So we really like to be like this launching platform for talents. Next, Sebastian. And this one is for this year. We're calling on designers to enter Dutch Design Week 2020, and that's the end of the presentation. So if you will show the video, it's really short. A future-oriented design week building on showing the work from inside, the processes, the prototypes, the concepts, building on the crossovers you can make with design, and building on talents. And those 3 elements, I would say, are the key elements to really have a look into the future. And that was actually, well, going back to your remark, Marcus. Oh. You saw the future from an ugly little town in the south of the Netherlands with one hell of a design week.
It's quite a long time ago. You can't believe you're still using that quote.
Oh man, especially for this one, of course, Marcus.
Luckily, that's a positive quote. There's other things I've said about other design weeks that have come back to haunt me. Right, Joseph? Anyway, Joseph, if you could tell us a little bit about your view of things now with your presentation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, my presentation is very much simply latching on to what Martijn has already said. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, so yeah, the graduation show of Design Academy Eindhoven was really one of the moving it back. Lee Edelcourt, one of my predecessors, made this very radical move in the year 2000 of bringing the graduation show of the Academy back from Amsterdam, where it had been for many years, based on the assumption that nobody would want to come out to Eindhoven to just to simply see a graduation show. So it was best to go to where the public was, i.e. Amsterdam. She made this very bold move of moving it back to Eindhoven. And that was in many ways kind of one of the moments in which the Dutch Design Week was born. Over the years, obviously it grew to become something much bigger, mainly thanks to the efforts of the Dutch Design Foundation, which has really amplified, I think, a kind of a collective movement that the students of the Academy, as you already said, a lot of students stick around in the city, so that already kind of provides a solid foundation. But increasingly, the work of the Dutch Design Foundation has served to increase all of the kind of secondary moments of convergence for other academies, other schools. It's also studios. An increasing number of people have set up design studios in the Academy. So that the idea of the graduation show is really integral to what Dutch Design Week is. But over the years, the Design Academy show has actually grown significantly, just the way that the whole Design Week has. So this nowadays, we're talking about a show that collects the work of around 150 students over 150 works. And that's quite a significant undertaking to kind of find a space that can actually accommodate so many works, many of which are actually completely outside. Some of them are minute, they're very diverse. Some of them are completely immaterial, they're just performative. But it's this wonderful moment where, as I said just before, it's really the kind of the apex, the climax of the student experience at the Design Academy. It's something that they really look forward to for years, that they work towards for years. So it's this very celebrative moment. And thanks to the importance that Dutch Design Week has achieved, we now have over 50,000, almost, I think last year it was 55,000 visitors, which is kind of phenomenal. And it's something that has really also become kind of one of the key factors in the Design Academy's influence, because obviously so many people coming and seeing these projects really makes it into a very important opportunity for the students. So I just wanted to show, so this is kind of a typical moment of preparation within the Academy, students kind of working very, very hard in the weeks and the months leading up to the textile workshop, in the metals workshop. For the Design Academy is a very material oriented school. We take a lot of pride in this very strong connection to our manual dimension of design, of really kind of manipulating materials, a very intimate knowledge of materials, but of course also the conceptual dimension, which then is articulated in many, many different ways throughout the show. So typically, since the school brought the graduation show back to Eindhoven in the early 2000s, it's been held within the Witte Dame building, the beautiful building where the Academy is housed. But obviously, as I was saying, with the growth of the whole of the Dutch Design Week, with the growth of our audience, we've needed to look further. So as of the last 2 years, we've been holding the graduation show in the former Campina milk factory, thanks to a collaboration with VDF, who are the owners and operators of this building. We've actually been able to take over these marvelous ex-industrial kind of almost like hangars, where the Eindhoven milk industry was based, serving a lot of the south of the Netherlands, the Flanders and so on, with industrial volumes of milk. But it's since been moved elsewhere, and so we've had the very good fortune of being able to occupy this historic building with a collection of, with our annual presentation. And this is something that really is, the building is exceptional because it also has a completely diverse range of qualities of space. This is the Milk Fabriek area, which is particularly bright. It's the oldest part of the building. It's actually listed as a building, thankfully. As you can see, it's this very sort of early 20th century glass pavilion style. And it really kind of lends itself to a dialogue with the work. We like the idea that every year, despite the fact that we have now this agreement with VDF for multiple years, we really like to reinvent the show every year and to make it into something new, make it into something refreshing and inspiring. And in that sense, I must say this year, obviously we're going to face a whole number of challenges about social distancing and so on. But just to give you one example, we're really kind of trying to think about how certain areas of this building that were not possible to activate because of the sheer volume of people. Obviously this year we're going to have the access will be much more regulated. So it may actually be possible to take the public to areas of this historic building that were not possible to visit before. So just a few projects, a lot of them are actually, such as Camilla Kennedy's, the best descriptor is fuzziness. A lot of the projects are actually about not necessarily presenting a product as such, but more about an atmosphere, creating a performative environment where design can be articulated according to a set of terms and the paradigms that are not necessarily traditional. This is another view of one of the distribution sites where the milk was loaded into trucks. Obviously the Academy, one of the reasons why we have so many projects to present every year is that it's a school that has two parts. There's the bachelor's school and the master's school with 8 studios in the bachelor's department and 4 moving to 5 in the master's. And as well as that, we also have the research department. So that's one of the reasons why we have so much to show and so much space, need so much space. Another paradigmatic ceramic, Siek Hyun Yoon Ot, and just like the diversity of the projects, I think is one of the things that is really part of the DNA of our school, but in many ways I think of Eindhoven in general. And I think that's why studios like Kiki and Joost and so many others who have come out of the Academy have found fertile ground, because it's a remarkable city in that it's capable. And I think in that sense, there's a similarity with Milan, a city that has an extraordinary diversity of an incredible skill base of artisans and craftspeople who are really able to provide the services that are necessary to explore new dimensions of design, but also a great cultural infrastructure in terms of laboratories, schools, galleries that are really in complementing that with a more kind of conceptual approach to design. And that's something that we think is very important to include in the Design Academy show every year. The arena is a space that's devoted specifically to debate and discussion. In other words, to present projects that maybe are not about even they're not material, they're not even performative, they're really conceptual in nature. So we consider the arena to be just as important as any of the other spaces in the school. And yeah, just a few photos of some of the friends who we regularly see coming through the show and that extend the show and the whole of the Dutch Design Week's influence internationally, such as our very good friend Rosanne Orlandi, who's a regular, and even the Princess Laurentienne, who on several occasions has actually come to visit the graduation show. So it also has a kind of very an important role within the kind of framework of Dutch culture on a broader level. Just a quick note on ways in which we're also kind of extending in new directions the graduation show. For the last few years, we've also introduced an additional show in collaboration for most editions with the Van Abbe. We also did one edition here in Milan called Geo Design. And this is really looking at design on a planetary scale, looking at the implications of how design is transforming in response to some of the kind of macroscopic forces that are shaping the way that we live on the planet. And this takes also the design into a kind of a completely different context, because this fantastic collaboration we have with the Van Abbe Museum, one of the most important and influential museums of contemporary art in the Netherlands, also allows our students to enter into dialogue with a completely different channel of representation of their research and their work. So yeah, Geo Design is a kind of a very research-driven complementary platform to that of the Dutch Design Week. And with that, I think I'll wrap up my very quick presentation.
Great, thanks, Joseph. Just quickly, so you are going to, will this show be of the same scale as previous years, but with fewer visitors? That's what you're anticipating, or will the show also be more modest?
It will be a little bit more space constrained, but not very much. So I think we're confident to say that it's not going to be fundamentally different from previous years, although we may have to make a little bit of accommodation for space. But simply the fact that we aren't, even if we wanted to, we wouldn't be able to accommodate all of the visitors we had in previous years, actually makes, in some ways it makes things more difficult, in others it makes things easier, because we don't have to fulfill all of the same safety regulations and density, crowd control and so on. So it'll be different, and I think we're actually going to learn a lot from, it's definitely going to be just as great and just as compelling as previous years. It'll take a more contemplative form, I would say, because that's kind of the nature of a show that is less about the kind of density of the crowd and more about the focus on the reading the content. So yeah, we're yet to define all of the specifics and details. It's going to not be fundamentally different from previous years in terms, at least, of the content.
And speaking personally, and probably also selfishly, I can't wait to come to a Design Academy show where there's less people. If I can make it, that is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not
Well, let's cross fingers. I mean, I think it's important to also say that we're all very much aware that we're in the middle of an unprecedented and unpredictable situation, and we may have to make alterations and adaptations at the last. We can't guarantee that things are going to go as planned, but I think at this stage we have a much better understanding of how all of this works. We're planning for all situations. So yeah, I think we're confident to say that we're going to be able to welcome you there.
Unlike many design students around the world, the students at Design Academy Eindhoven, in fact, maybe more than other schools around the world, often through their work address what's going on in the world. I remember there were lots of responses to the refugee crisis a few years ago. Obviously, climate change is a common occurrence. But did the pandemic come too late in the school year for students to be able to respond to it? Will the show have projects that are about the coronavirus pandemic?
I'm sure it will. I mean, I can already say that it will. I'm not sure whether already in November, or October. But one of the episodes of this Geo Design series of exhibitions is actually going to be dedicated to the theme of COVID-19 and looking at the way that this, in many ways, like some of the themes that we've looked at before are junk, so the way that waste is actually an industry, or Alibaba as a force in transforming the way that commerce and logistics unfold. And similarly, COVID-19, which is, it's not a company, it's not a kind of a byproduct, but it's actually a disease. Similarly, it articulates dynamics on a planetary scale. And so, yeah, geodesign is one of the instruments that we have to kind of analyze these occurrences. But I think also students at in every part of the school are going to be looking at this and thinking about ways in which they're very responsive. They respond very quickly and adapt very quickly. And I think that the theme chosen, intimacy, is going to resonate very strongly, especially this year, with a lot of them.
Thanks, Joseph. Kiki, so do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your work with your presentation?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. This is a picture of 20 years ago when I just graduated. I graduated with a few different things, but one was called We're Living in a Doll's House. It was a gigantic cross-stitch carpet inspired on the strange proportions within dolls' houses. But what I actually wanted to say in a playful way was that we have how vulnerable we are as human beings. And this was a side presentation I did for Design Academy then, food installation for the design projects. But why I like to show it is that it is kind of very fresh picture. And what I really liked also about the first picture Joseph was showing of all these fresh graduated students all together, there was so much joy in that picture, and also connection of the community, which I still feel very strongly as a designer amongst, you know, colleague designers that graduated longer ago already, but also recent graduated students or people still studying that we have also as interns. In Eindhoven, I feel there is a very strong relationship between the creative people, and also in a very pleasant way. We don't see each other as competitors, at least that's how I feel it, but we are being very generous to each other, and we want to help each other. That's also, I think, what this design week will even be more about being generous with other people. This is one of the former buildings we used to be in at Stripe S. It's a picture of Design Week, I think 10 years ago or something. When we entered that building, there was nobody there. There was not even a street. There was only mud. You can't imagine it now, how everything has been growing in Eindhoven. But we were the first in that area in Stripe S. Like I said, the workshop is a very important part in my work with things that we craft by ourselves. My work is very diverse in a very wide spectrum. It's quite eclectic. As Joseph said, that's maybe in the DNA also of Eindhoven designers, that it goes so diverse that you work on really different projects, whatever is relevant at that moment. This is a picture also of a design week 8-9 years ago where we completely transformed the space. This is a picture of Design Week last year in our old studio. We have been moving 8 times already in 20 years' time. This was in Plan B, and we did an exhibition together with the Rijksmuseum. And also in a kind of unorthodox way. I think 20 years ago, you couldn't imagine that a state museum like the Rijksmuseum would present itself like this in a kind of very bold workshop. And I think that's also what Eindhoven is about. It's kind of striving forward always, and yeah, also daring to take risks and to go a little bit further than what we know. This is one of my own autonomous projects called Space Poetry. It's about the relation between architecture and space. And this has been photographed last year in the Campina Milk Factory in one of the spaces where the Design Academy show takes place. I know it's for many reasons a fantastic building with a lot of opportunities. Actually, we just moved last year to our last destination for the studio. We bought a place that we renovated and built in a very sustainable way. And this is just very in the same street as the Campina Milk Factory, just a few hundred meters away. What you see here is a collection of solar panels that Joost and I designed for a company called My Energy Skin. It's a kind of sandwich of relief structured glass with a print behind, and together it's a kind of new material. So it has, you have a kind of intimate feeling with that panel. It's not just like a kind of cold panel as we know it, but it's really a kind of new material. So that's also part of the process we do in the studio. They are now being developed to be on the market soon. Coming year, what we are going to do is we're going to present some autonomous works that really reflect on the period we live in right now, how you can be even more intimate with the materials around you in your workshop, not always having to go outside of that and using the most polished things, but things that you find around you. And also in this time of the lockdown, we've been working from home for 2-3 months, and then you get even more close to everything, which is really close to yourself. But next to our own works, we also want to show we want to invite some other people to show works in our workshop, to be generous, to also friends from the community. So this is, for example, a project that I did for a beautiful brand called Social Label. It's a Dutch brand working with several Dutch designers, really diving into working together with people that have a distance from the labor market, but really integrating them in the design process, not just letting them make things, but really, working together with them also on a conceptual level. We will show more than only this, also from other designers. We give them a stage. This project, what I designed for them is the little lamps that are made of rest material leather that they have to sort out. And then they have to knot it with a special technique inspired on how it works with djembes. But the nice thing is that that within this process, you have to think the other way around. Normally in an industrial process, you have to think very efficient and that it shouldn't take too much time to make something. But here it was all about coming up with something that takes as much time as you can from the makers. So this is something that takes a lot of hours to make for those people, which is really good because that way they have something to do all day that they can be really proud of. Also, we will be showing a project with Stanley Crystal, the high-end crystal company, the oldest crystal company from Europe, based in Saint-Louis-la-Biche in France. They haven't been able to show in Milan on the fair. They won't be able to show at Maison Objet. So we also invite them in our studio to do a whole scenographic installation. This is something that they have been showing in January in their own boutique. But also this kind of high-end brand, you couldn't imagine that they would present 20 years ago in a designer studio. Normally they go, to high-end fairs. And I think this is really interesting that also comes much more close to the people by showing it in your own workshop. And then the last slide, what I want to show is I'm going to have a retrospective of 20 years work in the Dutch Textile Museum, also postponed because of Corona, but it will take place, it will start opening for public end of September, and it will be on for 1 year. And I think it would be really nice to encourage people, especially from outside Holland that will come to Design Week, maybe from England or France, to also go to this museum since it's in Tilburg, only 20 minutes by train. And I think there will be more places around Eindhoven, like Den Bosch and Helmond, where you could also maybe visit some designer studios or Co-Unum ceramics. Since we have to spread out the amount of people more, I think it would be very nice also if people take a few days to come to Eindhoven to also go around a little bit in the area of Eindhoven. That was my presentation. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Kiki. So almost what you're suggesting is people do a sort of design holiday around the Netherlands instead of flying in, rushing around like crazy for maybe 48 hours and then flying back again. Come and relax and travel around and maybe hire a bicycle or...
Yeah.
Do you think that's feasible though? And what about, obviously Dutch Design Week is important to you, but what about other design weeks around the world? How has what's happened with coronavirus changed the way you think about going to other fairs? Will you still want to do that, or will you think, because some of the designers and brands I've been talking to want to now be a bit more intimate and local with their presentations and not so much about the flying everywhere and the traveling and the expense?
Yeah, well, in general, I've been always quite cautious about flying or not, or participating in something or not. So I was always very conscious, like, is it really relevant that I have to go there, or can I skip it? And I will be even more. I always have said also that I thought it would be good maybe for Milan Salone to have a biennale instead of annual thing, which now happened by accident, but who knows, maybe it could be a good way to move on. Yeah, I think you just become even more critical on everything you do and what you will do and what you want. And I think that's good, because we don't want, we want to be good for the world. And in my own work, nature takes a big place as well in my own world and work, private. And I think, you know, we have to be very careful on that. So it's a good moment to make even stronger decisions.
Thanks a lot, Kiki. Martijn, could you just explain to us exactly what the plans are for Dutch Design Week this year? And also tell us a little bit more about the theme, the new intimacy, and how designers can get involved in that?
Yeah, well, a lot has already been said about intimacy. I mean, I've hugged my mom 2 days ago for the first time in 4 months, which was really a powerful moment. And I think we really need to reevaluate, you know, ground again, because we've been scared. We've been scared in public spaces. We've been scared of each other. We really need to reevaluate how we're going to relate to each other. How are we going to relate to our stuff? How are we going to relate to traveling? How are we going to relate to public spaces? How are we going to find, you know, this core value, this basic human need of intimacy again? You know, we're having a up close and personal talk now, even being very far away. So new technologies have really been very powerful lately, and yet we also need this physical contact again. So intimacy, I think, it will be a discovery again, a road, a journey, and I think design will be a very powerful element in this journey. So that's why we said new intimacy. But it's also about the new Dutch Design Week. We've been building scenarios and throwing them in the bin one after another. I mean, every 2 weeks it was a different world out there. And at a certain point, we were almost at the verge of giving up. You know, we'll do an online version and that's it for this year. But then we talked to the school, to the design schools. We've talked to the designers themselves, and it was especially the design community that said, you know, we need something. We need a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. We need to meet new people. We need the appointments, meetings. We need to talk. We need to show our new work. And that's really the moment that we said, whatever we can do, we will. We will have a live version. I'll talk about the online bit a bit later, but live, we said, and we talked really close together with the community. We said, look, this is going to be a joint effort. We're in it together. We'll take the risks together. We need you, and that's the way we built from there. And that was a really powerful moment as well, with the designers saying, yeah, this is what we want to go for. And what we're doing is, let's say, a decentralized model. So we have about 30 to 40 places within the city where you can have, let's say, up to 50, 60 or 100 people at the same time. So it will be decentralized a bit more, where we say, look, we will focus. Maybe it's going a bit back to the essence of this design week, of relevant meetings for the designers. So we'll focus on let's say, a high level design invested audience. So I would say professionals, business professionals, design professionals, media professionals, and highly involved audience, instead of the bigger general audience. And we'll really focus on making relevant meetings happen. But of course, some of the restrictions have loosened up a little bit as well. So that really means we can still more and more go for this more kind of Dutch Design Week flow that we know. So it will not be for 350,000 people, but who know where we'll go with the restrictions. It could either go better or worse. We know we're somewhere in the middle. We're planning in the middle, so we can go either way, but we think we can invite up to 50 or 60,000 people. But all the designers say, look, even if I can have like 200 people in my workplace a day that are relevant people, that would mean so much for me. And I can have these intimate moments and these relevant conversations. So that's the live element.
Joseph, I'm aware you need to shoot off, but just quickly before you go, what's your take on this? Obviously, you're in Milan, which is the biggest and the most famous and in many ways the best design week. Every design week around the world, every industry, not just design, is facing this. But what do you think is going to happen? Is everything going to get smaller and more intimate? Do we want to go back to how things were before, or will we be exploring new models which might involve virtual components or new physical components that we hadn't thought about before?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a very strong advocate for not going back to how things were before, because it would be such a missed opportunity. As I think Kiki was also saying, the way that we experience the latest work of designers, or the latest production companies and so on, I think the expectation is already very different now than the way it was 20 years ago. I think coronavirus, all of the restrictions that we're kind of currently undergoing are going to transform that permanently. And I think that that's something that we've been sort of pretending. I think the whole world has been in a way in denial about what needs to be done in order to face a much larger crisis, which is the climate crisis. Simply using the idea that actually, you know, what can we do? It's like, this is the way it is and there's no alternative, as a kind of an excuse for just keeping on doing things the way they are. And I think the most powerful thing about this year and this moment is that we've been shown that when we need to take strong collective action to collectively face up to a crisis, we can do. And I think that we really need to remember that the coronavirus, tragic and terrible as it is for many people, and for many people more than for others, it's still not probably going to be something that we come out of relatively quickly, whereas there are other crises on the horizon that are much more significant. And and often they're all interconnected, like coronavirus together with the question of inequality within wealthy societies. Often the communities that are worst affected by the disease are those who are also kind of already in a position of difficulty beforehand. So I think we need to really take this as a moment of reflection on how we're going to reset things going forwards. And I think the design community is part of that. We also need to think about what kind of these major international events. Obviously, we all love getting together and we miss not being together in whether it's in Eindhoven, Milan, Stockholm, or wherever else. But there are different ways to do that. We can do it less frequently with more considered, in a more considered way. And that in turn, I think, will also change the kind of design that we talk about, the kind of design that we promote and present, to make it also a little bit less sort of consumption driven, less about novelty, and about kind of continual cycle of surprise and innovation, and making it into something that is kind of set up to also be compatible with a kind of a slightly longer term view. So I would love it if the Dutch Design Week became a pioneer of a new model of discussing and talking about design that is more focused, a little bit slower perhaps, and richer in terms of the experience, a little bit less compressed.
And maybe also design weeks need to stop talking about the numbers so much, because we all need to see our friends, we all need to see people who are important to our businesses and our social lives, and who will be important in the future. But I don't think any of us need to see 350,000 people all at the same time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So maybe carry that back to you, Martijn. Maybe you need to, Joseph, feel free to go now if you need to. Maybe like being the biggest is no longer something to aspire to.
No, I agree. So in a sense, we're all in our daily lives are in some sort of rat race, one or another. And I agree that sometimes it's been really interesting the last couple of months. Very difficult as well, but for who it was for everyone. But it's been interesting where you really have to reinvent yourself. So what is the core essence of what you're doing? And those are those relevant meetings. So how can we really cater to that and make that happen as well online as live? And so I agree with you. So but sometimes you're also an oil tanker is not the right phrase, because we're much more of a flotille of a lot of different boats, but we're going in a direction. And now we had to reinvent and really talk to each other. Which way do we want to go in this rough sea? And that's been and also some innovations that you were looking for. Sometimes get cast away because you're so much working towards that moment in October, and now you have time to look at them and revalue them. So, for example, if I could say a little bit about the online and hybrid format, Marcus. what we do is open up for everyone around the world in this online format where we'll have different, and an online experience is not the same as just throwing your live experience online and hope that that will be appealing. So we're looking for new formats there. So there, for example, every designer will get a 3D room that they can really design themselves, put their content in. You can hook up different of those rooms into a sort of routing of let's say, disciplines or different themes. And we're going to go for hybrid formats where you have 360 views of, for example, Kiki and Joost's place. So online you have a feel of visiting them as well, even with talks, meeting them online, getting this opportunities to chat to them or make appointments. All about making these meetings happen instead of the sheer numbers. So I agree. So hopefully we can cater to all the designers that want to join Dutch Design Week in the online platform, and then try to make the best hybrid format between live and online as well. So that's what we're looking for. But I agree, it's much more about the relevance than the numbers.
And final question, Martijn. So the theme, the new intimacy, are you calling for designers to suggest ideas that respond to that theme? Is that what the call is going to be? And if there's designers watching this who want to get involved, want to propose an idea, how do they do that? And how can we help you?
Well, it's always with our theme. What we're trying to do is kind of catch the urgency of what's going on. And it's a bit, as Joseph said as well, it's not a theme top down. Designers don't have to relate to it, but we already saw a lot of participants and a lot of them are thinking about this. So it will be much more a loose theme of the whole, I would say, flow of what we are doing, what some of the designers are doing. But you can just enter with good design work anyway. It could be furniture, it could be social design, it could be spatial design, architecture. So you can join in the online platform anyway. And some of them are selected to if they want to, that they can join live as well. The spots are not we don't have as many spots as normally, but still there is room. And yeah, we would love to talk to you, and we already are in discussion with the zine as well, because we feel that at this moment design, what I find really interesting is that we feel that design is more important now than ever. People who really think of, but what does this mean for people, and how can we adjust processes, how can we adjust systems, how can we adjust products, how can we reevaluate, and those are many design questions. This whole 1.5 meter society that we're trying to build, at least in the Netherlands, that's a design question, spatial design questions, and yet we see governments and companies shying away from that, because everything that looks like this is scary, we don't know it, we need to invest up front, we don't know what the outcome will be. Let's not go into the creative world. Let's get back to our core business without experimenting. But we need a lot of experimenting and prototyping at this moment. So what we would love to do with the designers out there is also, give us your ideas, give us your ways on what's going on, your insights. And if we could also look into that, we've been building on the program Good Design for a Bad World. Well, I think that theme is also more relevant than ever. So we would love to build on that, Marcus.
Okay, we have a lot to talk about, and we'd love to help you with that. We're out of time, I'm afraid. Thank you so much, Kiki. Thank you so much, Martijn and Joseph, and definitely hope to see you in October in Eindhoven.
You're very welcome, as us, everyone who's watching. But yeah.
From 1.5 meters, of course.
Thanks so very much. You can just you can join classes at 1.5 meter and have.
Okay. Bye bye. Thanks for doing this with us.
Thanks very much.